we're going to talk about the Boston Celtics and the legacy that the 2022 NBA championship would mean to this organization and to the players and the coaches that are there. And obviously, if they can go all the way here and cause an upset, they're obviously underdogs in this series. What it means in the bigger picture. So I guess firstly, this would take the Celtics to become the winningest franchise in current NBA history. So that 18th championship, and the Lakers now would be desperate to get the to have to tie that up again somehow, somewhere, and that's a whole nother podcast, right? So I guess I think that's firstly that it's clearly you'd have to say Celtics are the greatest franchise that the NBA currently has seen since the inception of the NBA. I think I was looking at the players though, and many of the players are young in this sort of list. No one expected they were going to go all the way. Okay, no one really picked them going past the Bucks. There was many people didn't even pick them going past the Nets, and Miami was all banged up, and they got past them. And I think this is the beginning for most of the players. Okay, so I think if they all put a championship against their name, it's a start of many more championships opportunities. Okay, there's a key word there, opportunities, because the window is clearly open right now in Boston, and probably is potentially open for another 5 years. And 5 years is a lifetime in sports. Okay, especially in the NBA. Okay, and I think the management there with Brad Stevens and ownership are smart enough and experienced enough to keep the right pieces in place. And as long as they're healthy, okay, they should, okay, be back at this stage again at some point, and a potential to win a second, third ring potentially. Okay, for these core players. I think the biggest legacy here, though, all right, is for Udoka. All right, as the first-year coach, for him to win a ring here, okay, cements his coaching ability. Okay, and I think this is a critical series for him, that if they can cause this upset, that Udoka would be then falling into a category like Spoelstra. Yeah, Spoelstra's untouchable. He won a couple of rings obviously back then, and he's a great coach, don't get me wrong, okay? But those rings, he's a championship winning coach, two-time, championship winning coach forever, okay? Think about Ty Lue, okay? He won a ring obviously at the Cavs, had LeBron obviously there as well, okay? And he's like, a sought after name because he's got that ring, okay? Think about Doc Rivers. Like, Doc Rivers is there's so much conversation about Doc Rivers. Is he a good coach? Can he coach? Does he make the right adjustments? And so on and so forth. But he won a ring in Boston, obviously, okay? He's a championship winning coach, okay? Nick Nurse is going to have a long career, okay? If he leaves Toronto at any point, okay, someone else will pick him up. That's the point, okay? A championship ring as a coach, okay, gives you that on your resume, and that keeps you in the league. Because if you think about all those coaches that come in, especially player coaches like Udoka is, okay, that that wasn't a superstar. He's not a Jay Kidd. He's not a Chauncey Billups. Okay, they got rings as core players, all right, when they were back in the day. All right, so there's a different sort of pathway there. Okay, that how many coaching players, and here's a stat you love to look up, right, that have coached and not won a ring and have not come back. Okay, thinking some names like Jacques Vaughn, okay, was a huge candidate back in the day. That obviously, was a high. He was part of the Spurs tree and stuff like that. And, where is he now? He's fallen off the radar. He wasn't successful in that sort of sense. You can probably pick some other players that sort of have just floated around, like McMillan. Okay, he's obviously at Atlanta at the moment, and he's being given another lifeline there in a sense to coach, and he's been doing reasonably well. But you know what? If Atlanta don't make the make the playoffs, okay, this season, his seat's probably on the he's on the hot seat again. Okay, that's how short a coaching lifespan is when you're not successful. Okay, and Vogel found that out obviously at the Lakers. Okay, and I'm saying that if Udoka here can win a ring, all right, he's going to be an NBA coach for the next 10, 15 seasons if he wants. Okay, but if he doesn't, okay, he could be gone in the next couple of years.
It's a great take. You made a really good case with the coaching thing. I think you're right. Once you get one ring on you, everyone just looks at you different. And his ring as well, you know, I don't know the semantics of what happened in the Celtics season, but they were 500, 40 games in. And clearly some coaching adjustments, clearly reaching the players. Like, the roster did not change, but all of a sudden they are competing for a championship. So definitely a lot of credit given to him. I guess I'll go in a different direction. Obviously, Jayson Tatum would be solidified as a superstar, probably in the same vein that Giannis was last year, getting that first championship, young talent, staying with the team that drafted him, kind of coming short for a lot of years and then all of a sudden getting over the hump. But also, I think it would be on par with the 2011 championship that the Mavs got over the Heat, where the Mavs went through the Lakers, the Spurs, and OKC. So they went through three very good teams just to get to the finals. And, we're talking Western Conference rivals that gave them a hard time for years to get over that hump and then destroy a super team. I think we're in the same vein for Jayson Tatum, right? Goes through Brooklyn, and Brooklyn had no excuses, really. They had Kyrie and Kevin Durant. That, chemistry aside, they had their best players ready to rock, and they couldn't even get a game off them. They did beat Milwaukee without Middleton, but I think we give them a little bit of credit. The narrative's different if Giannis is out and Middleton's in versus the way that it was. And Giannis gave them hell, and they were down 3-2, so they almost lost that series. And then Miami as well. Miami, in the finals 2 years ago, clearly is still a credible force. I think the other thing that's going to happen from this is that it's going to solidify the Celtics as one of those top four teams in the East for the next 5 years, because one of the interesting things that will happen in the East is the jostling, right? Because Milwaukee Reloaded is ready to go back into the finals, right? Miami feels like they're about a piece away, and I know that the Tyler Hero trade talks are already coming up, where they really just need someone to assist Jimmy Butler, and they're right back in the finals as well. I don't feel like Philly's going to figure it out. I'm sorry. I just don't feel like that James Harden piece is helpful. And I feel like Brooklyn is a day away from imploding every single time I open my phone and I see something Brooklyn related. So I really think that those teams are going to keep jostling in those Eastern Conference finals for the next 5 years, right? I'll go 5 years. Miami will probably drop out first, I think, just based off the age of Jimmy Butler and the way that he plays. But Milwaukee and Boston, definitely, they're going to keep jostling for those final things. And they might even alternate finals appearances. Maybe Boston will go again next year, and then Milwaukee will finally get back the year after. But that's what I think the implication of this is for at least the East. And then in terms of some other people as well, their contract situation will be interesting, right? So Marcus Smart will be an NBA champion, defensive player of the year. And when his free agency comes up in a couple of years, what does that look like? Jaylen Brown will have the championship. So then does he want his own team? There's a lot of interesting dynamics at play there that I think the Boston Celtics will have to deal with. And that's present day. And I know that you alluded to the franchise stuff. I've never really bought into the history of things. Like, you see this whole the last time Boston and Miami met in a game 7, this happened. And it's just like, they're completely different teams. I don't know why we do this in sports, that we think that the organization 10 years ago is the exact same as it is now. And I also think, it's the implications of almost destroying the Golden State dynasty, because Golden State will then have to look at themselves with 6 finals appearances, only 3 wins, 2 of which were the Kevin Durant super team. They clearly weren't very good. And it also kind of triples down on the Steph Curry stuff, where I don't know how he comes back. If he loses again in the finals, he kind of plateaus, I think, on the all-time great list. So there's a lot of interesting things that will come out of this finals.
I think, look, I just hope, and obviously I picked the Boston Celtics to come through in this finals, that they don't turn into the Trailblazers when they made the conference finals, and they had Lillard, they had obviously McCollum playing well enough at that point. I think they had obviously Nurkic healthy, Kanter I think backing him up, and they had Covington I think at that point still, and they're clicking, and guess what? They never made it back there. And Terry Stotts is gone, and that's a rebuild now. So they win a ring here. That window is open for 5 years. Okay, if not longer potentially, but they don't. They may not be back. All right, nothing's a guaranteed in the NBA. So they better bring everything obviously to this series here, because it's as simple as that.